Here you go. In the tradition of Western countries, legal rightness and canonicity are placed in opposition to the current people's social life. So rightness and people's social life are considered to be intense relationship. So the concept of dualism like such ideal and reality is also seen in a religion like Christianity, like absolute separation between the God and human beings. So there is a legal proverb that expresses this kind of dualism in an impressive way, which is like justice, let justice be done, though the world perish. So as long as the law is recognized to exist in a valid way, we have to make approaches to reality with the principle of law so that no compromise will be allowed in our society while the law works on us validly. So this is the basic principle of law, I think. And an easy to understand example, there is a prohibition that was enforced in the United States back in 1920s. And the prohibition of alcohol was an extremely unrealistic policy. Nevertheless, the United States government took do or die stance and strengthened ineffective crackdown policy against illicit distilling and illegal selling of alcohol. So while a train ran within the states that applied prohibition, no alcohol was sold in the train. And in the city where there was an ordinance that prohibited people from selling alcohol, an area of liquor shops was occupied along the border of the city. So the U.S. government made tremendous effort to apply this law realistically to people's social life. So of course, even in the Western countries, it is unavoidable that the authority makes a compromise and adjusts the regulation of the law because common morale and role are beaten by the pressure of the realistic matters in a society. So nevertheless, absolute trust is placed in a duality between the authority and the society in the Western society, in the Western culture. So in Japan, there is no law that separates reality and ideal based on the dualism. Law in Japan is not based on strict dualism, but Japanese law has a room to interpose, compromise, and different view of legal interpretation to consider realistic matters to some extent. So in Japan, soldiers fall in the battle were deified as a god in World War II. So in Shinto, there is no absolute separation between the god and human beings like Western countries. And a dead person who was evaluated as a great person with magnificent spirit was deified as an absolute god. And you may understand this circumstance if you see the background that the Emperor of Japan back in 1940s was seen as a living god. So in Japanese society, there is no tense relationship as an absolute confrontational structure between rightness and people's social life. And originally, compromise is calculated between both of them beforehand. So therefore, compromise of law to reality is made without hesitation gradually. So this kind of legal stance that rightness makes compromise to reality is highly evaluated as a reasonable and flexible stance in Japan, in the Japanese society. So, for example, the regulation of driving based on the road traffic law absolutely has very important legal contents of hazard prevention for human life and properties. In Western society, the authority enforces crackdown and applies legal regulations. to speeding and illegal parking mechanically with no mercy. But Japan is not like this. The authorities are premised on the compromise prior to enforcing crackdown to traffic violation without handing down the strict punishment. For example, in Japan, the Traffic Safety Week or public crackdown is announced by police and authority beforehand, and during this traffic safety week, police strictly enforces crackdown without missing any traffic violation on the road. Instead, when there is no such announcement from police, there are few watchmen and no ambush by police officers for traffic crackdown. So traffic violation is not cracked down, no exceptionally during this week. So this is a bit exaggeration, but it's like it is not really different from the situation where police announces the theft prevention week. So during this week, police officers strictly catches the thieves, but instead, except for this week, police officers don't necessarily catch thieves. So this is because rightness of the road traffic laws is not recognized as the absolute determinate regulation by the authority in the Japanese society, and more or less, people have awareness that they don't necessarily keep the road traffic laws. It's like it's not painful for them to violate traffic rule just one time. So this is the difference between the legal structure based on the difference between the legal structure on the premise of absolute dualism and the legal structure on the premise of compromise and consideration.